Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chakra Way Meditation Podcast. So today we are having a chakra chat, and I'm really excited for this chat. I think that it's going to be enlightening. I'm going to ask all my normal stupid questions, and we are talking to the very patient and lovely Michelle Galoob. Now, Michelle is an intuitive guide and coach. And so we are going to delve into things unseen, unknown, that I know because if you're listening to this, you, like me, are a seeker. You are intrigued by things like spirit guides and your intuition and the Akashic records. And these are all the things that we're going to get into with Michelle. So, first of all, thank you so much for joining me, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. So, I've told everybody what you do as an intuitive guide and coach. And before we get into the sort of the meaty kind of questions of tools and how-tos and so on, how did this come into your life? When did you start becoming aware, I suppose, of your intuitive gifts?
Well, I've always had the intuition, but I didn't really realize. I used to think it was my thoughts. I used to think that I was thinking everything, like, oh, well, I thought this about this person and it came true. I didn't realize it was guidance. Um, and I was a very normal, I am still normal, by the way. Um, very kind of left brain person, okay? Very much into logic. Uh,
Mm,
Having said that, I was always intuitive, just didn't know it.
yeah.
Um, and there was a time in my life that I felt really broken. Everything felt like wasn't going well for me. I was at my rock bottom, and my normal logical self would go ask a friend or, you know, see if there was one person I would trust to ask them what to do. And I'd basically exhausted all my avenues and I just felt like there was no guidance. I still didn't know what to do and I just felt really alone. Um, and so it was then that I literally begged the universe for help, which I would never do. I didn't even know what that looked like, actually. But I was crying right before going to bed, and I was like, "Oh, please, please, if there's a God, if there are spirit guides, just do something. I have no idea what to do." Anyway, so this was right before going to bed. I was like almost falling asleep, not quite asleep. I
Mhm.
see my spiritual teacher who had passed away um, a few months earlier at the foot of my bed. I'm seeing him like I'm seeing you right now,
Wow.
clearly. And I'm like, oh my God. And he signals to me, he says, yes, this is me, and you are hearing me, and you are seeing me. And
Yeah.
and so I start to ask the questions in my mind, not out loud, but
Hmm.
in my mind, but it felt like it was it was real. And he starts answering all the questions that I had, gave me clarity in every single area of my life to like specifics. Um,
Wow.
and it was such an insane experience. It was so magical. It felt like, I'd seen the light. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And
Did you kind of wake up from like, because I know there's that magic moment when you're just in your bed and your mind's just gently ticking over and hopefully you're about to just go to sleep. That's the sort of the moment where either you
yeah,
tick over and you go to sleep or you go into manic thought and you're awake for the next 2 hours. But in that moment when you were going, oh, please, and then your spirit guide showed up, did you kind of because I feel like my instinct would be like, oh my God, and wake up.
that's
And
exactly what happened. My heart
yeah.
started to race. Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I jumped. I jumped out of my skin almost, like I can't
Yeah, I can
believe this.
imagine.
Because I looked around me and I saw my husband sleeping right next to me. So I was like, I'm awake and I am seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Insane. Yeah. Yeah. So I did. I totally like I freaked out.
Okay.
But it was a
But
calming freak out. I was
but you
calm.
were but you were not so freaked out that you couldn't stop, ask the questions, listen, and actually remember what was told to you.
Correct. Because I actually felt, I could feel the light in the room. I could feel it almost felt like, okay, just imagine a porcupine with, with the spikes up. I felt like that was me. Okay.
Mhm.
And I felt like his presence kind of put a blanket over me. I felt comforted. I felt
Mm.
taken care of. So I felt so calm. It's like,
Oh.
oh, this is amazing. Um, and I did follow what he asked me to do, what he said that if I did, then, then X, Y, and Z will happen.
Mm.
And it happened. So that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my journey. After that, I was begging for another experience. I was like, please,
Yes.
I want this again. If I could have
Mm.
that. Um, and that's when, and suddenly I started to hear voices in my left ear.
Ah.
I was like, oh no, what is this all about? I did not know that I'd received a gift, and I believe I received it that night. I thought that I was going a little bit loony.
Hmm.
I thought I was crazy. I thought it was my thoughts again. Um, and I basically I confided in one person. I said, something's happening. I'm hearing voices. I don't even know what to do with this. And she was like, oh, I think your third eye is open.
Yeah.
So so it was after that, then I was like, never thought about it that way. And I went to see a tarot card reader shortly after that, upon her advice, and she said, go to this tarot card reader, and if she says that you can see, then ask her to teach you.
Right.
So that's what I did. I went to the tarot card reader, and she said that you came here to channel for people in this lifetime, and you see. And I
Mm.
still didn't know what that meant. So yes, that was the beginning of
Mm.
the journey.
Yeah, it is an extraordinary. I just love speaking to people like you who've had this kind of like sort of burning bush kind of moment. I find it absolutely fascinating. And I feel like there's this happens to a few people, but I feel like we all have the capability for it. We all have the ability, we all have some psychic abilities within us. And it's just trying to work out which and how it comes through, which ability it is. So you're clairaudient, so like you hear things. You could be clairsentient, you feel things. What's the other one? I can't think now. Here's,
Our cognizance
yes.
where it just
Um,
dropped in.
yeah, clairvoyant, that's seeing, but
Yeah.
that's the classic one that everyone knows. You
Yeah.
can see a clairvoyant because they can see, as you've
Yeah.
rightly said. So then you just sort of you sort of honed your skills being guided by this other person, by this tarot card reader type person. Is that right?
So the tarot card reader then told me, she said she couldn't teach me
Oh,
anything.
okay.
But she said, we're going to ask the cards where, who's going to teach you. And so she said that a lady from overseas will be teaching you in the month of March. It was January then. So
Hmm.
2 months pass. It's the last day of March. Um, my husband was on the phone with a healer from Argentina. He was looking for somebody who could do remote healing for his brother who wasn't well. Um, and I jumped into the car and I hear this voice and I was like, who are you talking to? And he says, oh, it's this healer. I'm like, oh my God. It was the last day of March. I put her on mute and I tell him, I said, she's going to teach me. Watch this space. And he was like, what are you talking about? Anyways, so he continues to talk for a little bit. She stops. She stops completely and says, who just got into the car with big brown eyes? He's looking at me like, what? And he says, I'm so sorry, my wife, she just got into the car. And then this woman says, I must meet you. I must meet you. I'm coming to LA next week. Now, she didn't tell him that. She says, I'm coming to LA next week and I must meet you. I said, okay, I'll meet you. So I go meet her in this coffee shop. She starts bawling the second I get there, and she was like, "Oh my God, my guides told me I needed to go to LA meet somebody, and now I know that person is you." So I'm, kind of, I'm like, why are you crying? This is making me uncomfortable. What is this?
Mhm.
And she said, I have to teach you everything I know. And the rest is history.
Amazing. So how long ago was all of that?
This was, I would say, like 13-ish years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are so many things that you do that I find really fascinating. And I mean, I have talked to people who can read the Akashic records before, but I'm still sort of grappling with that. But I think something that, and we'll come back to that, but I think something that I find is a common thread, and that's something that everybody needs to be able to. So, like, let's start little, work our way back up to the Akashic records because they're quite big, is connecting with our higher self, connecting with our intuition, connecting with potentially with our guides and the universe. And like I can do these things. I can connect. I know that if I ask the universe, if I, do that lovely thing when you go to bed and you just say a lot of lovely gratitudes and then you go like, show me how good it can be and all of those kind of classic things, that it really, really is effective. But how do we connect with spirit guide? Because I feel like that is very specific because everyone has a guide, and they might think it's their granny or somebody who died or, whatever. But how do people, because when I do my chakra readings, one of the things that I always read is psychic abilities. And some people have really open psychic abilities. I'm like, listen, you need to go and talk to somebody because this is like a gift that you clearly have. I'm not the person to teach you, but somebody can. It's much like
Mhm.
your tarot card lady.
Yeah.
Um, um, but how do we get in touch with that
That
guidance that's there? I want to talk about that more.
Okay, so first of all, it's to know that they are there.
Yeah.
We we don't see them, but they're there. And I always liken it to kind of your spirit guides are like waiters in a restaurant. They're waiting on you. So when you go to a restaurant and your waiter says, "What can you know, what would you like to order?" Most of us in this situation are like, "No, it's okay. I'll just do it myself. It's okay. I don't need your help," because we don't realize that our spirit guides are waiting for us to ask them for help. It's we're not bothering them, and that's another thing that a lot of people think that we're bothering our spirit guides. Okay.
That's I've never thought of that before. You're absolutely right. We spend a lot of time going, no, I've got this. I don't want to bother them and that I yeah.
Yeah.
It feels a bit needy to be asking for stuff, or it feels
Yeah,
self.
it's like I don't want to burden. I don't want to I don't want to burden them. I don't want to put
Okay.
them out. No, you're actually putting them out by not asking
We're
because
not.
they're waiters and they have a job to do.
Yeah, that's what they're here for. Okay.
Yes.
Love that.
Okay, so that's number one. Number
Yeah.
one is to know that they are around. They're like your bodyguards. They're those energies that comfort you. Now, you don't necessarily need to know exactly who they are and what their names are, in my opinion. I'm more about the energy and the energy
Hmm.
that they come with. Um, so that's number one. Number two, it's being in a place that you're quiet, that you're not thinking about your to-do list for the day, and that you you take time and set intention to quiet the mind. Okay, you set the intention to connect with your spirit guides and make sure to quiet the mind. So there's so many things that you can do to quiet the mind. It could be meditation, it could be going for a walk, a jog, doing the laundry,
Hmm.
washing the dishes. There's so many different activities. Taking a long shower, that for me is my favorite. I get all my best downloads in the shower. Okay,
Mhm.
so you've got to find that activity, that Zen activity, that thing that works for you,
Yeah.
that you're in the zone. After that, um, recognize how, like we talked about earlier, how you receive your your communication from the spirit world. Okay, so whether it's seeing, hearing, feeling in your body, a lot of us get this like up down feeling that the
Hmm.
goosebumps, the feeling in the gut,
Hmm.
um, tingling in the forehead. You just have to recognize it.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I'll say, spirit guides, could you show me, what a yes looks like, what a no looks like? Could you guide me? I'm always talking to them like they're here in the room with me.
Mm. Mm.
Um, could you help me, you know, have the right words in this meeting? Or could you help me operate from my highest self? And I just have a dialogue with them.
Mm.
Now, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna hear them immediately in the moment, or, you know, but I'm open to receiving guidance from them at any time. I
Can
receive their
you
guidance through my body, through my feelings, sensations,
Right. So
not a
it's not
mind.
always, it is not always just like a fully formed sentence that you're hearing. Sometimes it's just sensation. It's just this is right, or you get the up down feeling, or you get something.
Yeah, or a sign in front of me, like, oh, show me. I didn't know last year. I didn't know what to do about my daughter's school. Okay, she started school this one day and she had a horrible reaction to it, and I'd already signed her up. So my logical brain said, no, she's going to stay there and just suck it up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Get used to it vibes.
but
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But then the more I was tapping in, I was like, there's something off here. I just don't know what it is. I couldn't figure it out. So I didn't send her to school the next day or the next day or the next day, but I asked my spirit guides, even though it was against the grain for me. It's not the logical thing for me to do. So I asked my spirit guides, please give me a sign as to what to do. What's the best avenue for her? Is it finding her another school? Is it homeschooling her for this year? Or something else, because I always want to leave the question open, right? Um, and obviously I did my own research, you know,
Yeah.
what are the pros and cons of each thing? And then I handed it over. I said, okay, I'm handing it over to my spirit guides now. You show me. You show me the way. I surrender. I don't even want to figure this out anymore. And one of my cons for homeschool was that, probably one of the only cons was that I had to find a piece of furniture, like a desk and a chair, that would match the bedroom furniture. And I even though it's an easy fix, I was just like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with that." Anyways, I let it go. A few days later, my neighbor was moving out, and he went with this brand new designer desk and chair, which matched the white furniture in their bedroom. He put it out outside. And I said, "What are you doing with that?" He said, "We're moving and it's the one thing that didn't sell." He said, "Do you want it?" I was like, "Okay, that's my sign." So I signed her up to homeschool that year. It wasn't the perfect fit, but it worked for that year. Um, and
Wow.
it's just about being open. I was so open. The old
Mm.
me would have said, no, no, she goes to school. I signed her up. She's going to stay till the end of the year.
Mm. Yeah, no, I think we are. It is just a matter of opening yourself up to these signs. I can't think of any good examples that I've had, but I know that, when you ask for things, they just sometimes they do just happen. And sometimes you take it for granted and you don't think, oh, that was my guides because I asked them for that. But that's probably just my forgetful brain. But it is an extraordinary thing to really be consciously aware of when those signs are very visible and show up and slap you around the face a couple of times before you will listen. And it then kind of reaffirms that this is a thing that really is possible, that really is true. I think that the concept of having a spirit guide is something that used to be like even 10 years ago would have been like, really? What's your, that's a bit strange. I think it's really becoming way more an acceptable and accepted thing to understand because I think there's so many different ways to interpret it. And I think people are way more open to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a teacher who I'm not working with at the moment, but I did a couple of years ago, who was really transformative. And she's now working with dragons, and she has dragon spirits guides, and she births dragons who are her spirits guides. And for her, it's completely valid. For me, that sounds absolutely mad. I can't understand it particularly. I respect it. I love it. I love that that's the thing, but it doesn't fit for me. That doesn't vibrate for me. I
Right.
have,
Yeah, it doesn't resonate. Yes,
yeah.
totally. I know I have one spirit guide who shows up as a bird. So anytime I call on her, I'm like, are you here? And I'm telling you, like a bird will fly to my window and just hover there, and I'm like, oh, hello.
Here
So
you are.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
So it
it's just
really is just
really
a
about
matter
being
of
aware.
it's just a matter of asking and then being aware, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and knowing that they're there, you're not alone. So many of us live life feeling like we're on our own in this world, and we've got to figure it out. And that was me. That I had to figure all my problems out, had to figure out how to get out of mess. We have guidance. Let's use it.
Do you think that spirit guides and that spirit guide energy, is it loved ones who've passed on, or is it just entities, energies that are
It's loved ones, it's masters, angels, it's
the whole
all of
gamut?
the whole gang. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It's a really I find it very comforting. I'm not on first name terms with any of my guides, but I know that when I focus on asking for help and I focus on looking for signs, that it all pans out, And also, I'm so much lighter because I feel like I'm not alone. I feel like there's a kind of joyful glee to it because this kind of sensation of like, God, this world that we're living in is just so much more than it looks. And what a treat to be alive in it. I mean, I know life can be a bit of a mess sometimes, but come on, we're alive, living this incredible life. And there's so much we don't know, so much we can't conceive of, which brings us actually really nicely back to the Akashic Records.
Yes.
So, how and when did you first discover the Akashic Records? And how did you learn to read them?
So it was when my teacher from Argentina came along. So she's the one who taught me. Um, and the first time I accessed my own records, it was also a very magical experience. Um, I felt like I was on a high. I was like, what is this? I didn't have anything to drink, but I'm like, woo. I was like in this because you're this in this like whole different energy.
Just
It's like a
explain.
you're being plugged in to your soul's journey, basically. You're able to see so much more than you see on a regular basis. You
Mm.
know, you feel an energy of comfort when you're in the records, like calming. Like it again, it feels like your guides and anybody who's ever loved you in your life is they're all there. It's like there's such a loving feeling while you're in the records, you know?
Wow. So, I mean, my understanding of the records, the Akashic records, are that this is like an energetic data bank of everything that your soul's journey has ever been on, any
Yeah,
past lives, past, all of the stuff that your beautiful soul has experienced since
yeah,
its inception or birth or whatever. And it's all there for the looking at and for the learning from.
yeah.
And in my mind's eye, it's like some kind of AI generated infinite library, like in Oxford or something like that. But how do you get there? And how do you get there? What's the process? How did you learn to get there?
Well,
So,
it's just There is a meditation or prayer that you recite,
Okay.
special way to do it, that unlocks the door. It's like a key. That's the key to open up your record. Um, to me, like my vision of the records is kind of like the iCloud on the phone,
Okay.
where your information is stored, and you're able to, once you do this prayer, then you're able to get in. It's kind of like the password on the phone, you know.
Okay.
So once you get in, um, you are able to ask questions, always whatever is in your highest good, questions for your highest good, not
Mm.
to be nosy. It's not like, oh, is that guy gonna end up dating me, or are we gonna get married? None of this isn't a Google search for your soul to be nosy. We're not here to be nosy. We're not in the records to be nosy. The whole idea of being in the records is to help you um, navigate life smoothly and flawlessly so that you know how to overcome your challenges, so that you can see where you might have blockages. Some of us have, blockages in relationships or in work and making money or whatever. You're able to see what those blockages are, and then you receive the guidance of what you need to do to overcome those certain areas.
Extraordinary. And then, so because I know that you read the records, like if I came to you and as a guide and a coach and said, I want to go into, I'd love to read my Akashic records. So you're able, with my permission, express
Yeah.
permission, you're able to go in and read my records for me and tell me what you find. And what kind of guidance is it that you get from there? Because it's a fascinating little thing because obviously do chakra readings. So I go in and I can read about what somebody's energy is within them in this moment. And, a lot of it is to do with past stuff and what have you. But I don't have any idea. I just watch my pendulum do its thing as I ask the questions and write it down, and then we put it together.
Yeah.
But what sort of information are you actually getting with the Akashic records?
I mean, it is similar, I would say, to what you're doing. I'll receive, let's say, I mean, I get a lot of people come to me for relationships, okay?
Yeah.
Blockages in relationships.
Hmm.
So I will see whether it's coming from past life or in this lifetime, like the pattern that they might not be aware of, the pattern
Yeah.
that they need to kind of break. Like
Mm.
maybe they just have zero self-worth. So I'll give them the tools um to start building trust in themselves.
Yeah.
They have those tools. They're like, "Huh, I'm ready for the relationship," you know? So so it's really about finding what the pattern is and giving the tools to break that pattern in all different areas. Because a lot of
Mm.
us aren't really aware, not aware, like, oh, just relationships don't work out for me. No, there's something that's blocking
Yes.
you. And
Yeah.
that's the gift of the Akashic records, is you're able to see what that is clearly.
How does
And
it appear? So if somebody's,
well, for me, I it's really about the person that does the reading. So
yeah.
for me, it appears visually. I always see images.
Oh,
I'm hearing the voices. Um, in certain situations, uh, my guides may show me people that I already know that have similar traits. So they'll give me their story, and then I'll know exactly what's up with that person.
that's how fascinating. So like this interpretation, it is again, it's a very intuitive thing that you just have to trust your guts on so much. And I understand that fully. Again, when I'm doing a reading, in the moment when I'm doing the reading, I'm just like, okay, this is what I'm finding. And then we talk about it and I gain the information. But when I come and write about it afterwards, there's so much more that comes through that I'm like, I'm just getting a feeling that what's coming up for me around this is, like I
Yeah.
just sort of intuitively kind of like, what is that? And I've learned to just trust it and go with it. And I've sometimes I think, Jesus, I've told somebody something that's quite brutal or quite, honest, but that's what came up. And so I feel duty bound to say it. I don't
Well,
know.
that's exactly it. It's funny because funny you say that. I did a reading for somebody that I kept seeing. She was in her 70s, and I kept seeing her flying out of an airplane. But my ego didn't want to tell her that because I felt ridiculous. I was like, "Oh God, what is this? It doesn't even make sense. Maybe I'm making this up."
Yeah.
That's a lot of times that's what intuition feels like we're making it up.
Yeah.
Like, how can we be sure? What if I don't want to look like a fool. Anyways, I didn't tell her. And when you don't do anything with that information, your guides are going to keep repeating it and repeating it until you do something about it. So
Mm.
I kept hearing a voice saying, "You have to tell her, you have to tell her." But my ego kept saying, "No, don't
It's
tell her, you're going to look stupid." So I didn't, and I waited. And then when I finally did tell her, she starts crying and she was like, "Oh my God, I used to skydive in my 20s all the time." And it was whatever it was, the message around the skydiving, it wasn't so much the skydiving, but the message as to why they showed me that was the missing piece of the puzzle. So
Mm.
so we've got to trust what's coming. Our
Yeah.
guides are telling us something for a reason. It's not like, "Oh, well, that's ridiculous," which is that was a huge lesson for me.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, you and I, to a certain extent, also, we learned to trust our intuition. But I have to say, I still question whether it's my ego or my inner critic or my intuition.
Mm.
How do people differentiate? What's your top tips on differentiating between the higher self? Because the other thing I would be interested to ask you, so do you see a difference between intuition and higher self, or do you think they're kind of one and the same?
I see them as one and the same.
Mm,
I mean, they're probably a little bit different, but
yeah.
antics in my view.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you said that because I kind of agree. So,
Yeah.
how do we tell the difference between that higher self voice and that ego inner critic monkey brain voice that's telling us what we should? How do you tell people
So
the
so
difference?
I first of all, I named my higher self and I named my ego. I gave them a name. Okay, my
Okay.
higher self's name is higher self Michelle. Not exciting, but my ego's name is something really ugly. Um, and I hope nobody has family members with this name, but I named her Gertrude. Okay,
Okay.
so Gertrude, she's the one who, in the example I gave before, like assumes things, makes
Yeah.
logic out of things. The logical mind said, this woman's in her 70s. There is no way ever that she would jump out of an airplane. Like it's just n not happening. Okay, so Gertrude, not I, Gertrude made logic out of it. Higher self Michelle kept getting the information. She was receiving. She was in the place of receiving, and that 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 I feel is like such a powerful way to differentiate the two. Like you'll know when your Gertrude is in the room because
Mm,
because she will always make logic out of a situation. She'll always overanalyze. She'll say, "Well, I got this. Well, what does this mean? Oh, well, it could mean this, could mean that. Well, no, that's Gertrude."
yeah.
Higher
Yeah.
self is always in the place of receiving the guidance and being open. Now, another thing I would recommend actually is to write down the guidance you get as it is in pure form and really try not to analyze it. Just let it go. Just keep it there written down on the paper and then when you have no attachment to the outcome or to trying to understand it, when you're not attached to that, then you can ask your guides, I heard this, I received this guidance. Could you tell me what that means? And then you'll get even clearer. It's when we try so hard to analyze, to define, to make sense out of that, that's how you know.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that you come from, you come to this place from being very aware that you have a very logical brain,
Yeah.
because I find that, when you get a piece of something, intuition, higher message, whatever, and then you start to have this conversation within yourself, and Mrs. Bossy Pants, ego will try and logic it away and bring you up with bring you a sensible solution and a reason not to listen to it or a reason to dismiss it. Yeah, that's.
Again, we need to know how we receive the messages. It's always in the body. We're receiving
Mm,
the signals. So, I could give you another example. This is way before I was doing what I was doing, way before I realized how intuitive I was. It was around 9/11. Um, it was actually the 14th of September when I was living in London, and I had a flight to New York on the 14th. And and my mom was like, she was like, let's go to New York. We're gonna go to New York. And I'm like, what? My logical brain said we're never gonna get on this flight, whatever. So we're at the airport. Um, we ended up changing the airline we were on. We ended up flying through Canada. We're getting on the airplane, and I see this really shady looking guy. Okay, really, really shady. And in my mind, see, my
mhm.
ego said, well, you're paranoid. It was just September 11th. Now I'm judging him because he looks like a terrorist. I'm judging him for what he's wearing. I'm judging him because he's sweaty. You know, Michelle, don't even go there. Now, the part of me that knew my gut, I kept silencing my gut with my thoughts, like, no,
Mm,
no, you're paranoid, you're paranoid.
yeah.
And anyways, but then my gut was so much stronger that day that I told the flight attendant, I said, listen, there's a guy, a few people behind me who he's very shady. I wouldn't let him on the airplane. Anyways, he got into the plane. He had nothing on him. He had his hand in his jacket, like looked like he had a gun or something. I don't even know. And he was staring at me because I felt like he was onto the fact that I was onto him. Anyways, it turns out he was a terrorist. Okay. And they took him off the plane. They stripped the whole entire plane. He had a fake Italian passport. He he bought a one-way ticket, paid cash, etc., etc. And
Wow.
had I not listened to my gut and let my thoughts take over, well, no, Michelle, you're being paranoid and blah
Don't
blah blah.
cause a fuss. Everyone's being, yeah. Wow.
Might
Yeah.
not be here today. Yes.
Blimey. God, well, I mean, it is that if that is a very good lesson for us all
Yeah.
and why we should be developing our intuitive gifts, because everybody has them. I mean,
Yes.
everybody, even, my old 88-year-old dad who probably doesn't believe in any of this stuff and thinks it's all a load of hooey. He has intuitive gifts. He just hasn't tuned into it. And it is just all about awareness. What are your top tips for developing if you want to, as people I'm sure who are listening to this, want to develop their psychic gifts, their ability to connect with their intuition and so on. What are your top tips for us?
So the things that worked for me that like at the very beginning of my journey was simple yes or no questions. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, you could get a pendulum, like
Yes.
um and ask the pendulum, please show me what a yes looks like, what a no
Mhm.
looks like. Um, and you can do it in so many different ways. Now, a simple way without the pendulum, if you don't have a pendulum, is imagining in your mind's eye a traffic light. So you ask your guides, when you close your eyes and you ask your guides, please show me a red light for no and a green light for yes. And I really would recommend just start asking the questions. First, ask questions that you already know the answers to, so that
Yeah.
know,
Playing.
uh,
Play with it. Yeah.
yeah, play with it. Um, and when you know those answers, it's actually interesting. You'll see how your ego will come into the picture because you'll be like, well, of course it's Thursday today. I know that. Well, of course my name is Michelle. I know that, you know. So really step away from the thinking and step into just being open to see what you receive. Um, Ask the yes and no questions and then pay attention to how you're receiving your guidance, you know?
Yeah.
And
Is it visionary? Are you seeing images in your mind? Are you hearing things, or are you feeling body sensations in your body? And I think that that's the sensations in your body is probably a really good one, isn't it? Because I don't know that I've practiced and had a lot done myself, this rising sensation for yes, and that you get that sort of like gratitudey, bubbly thing, or the
yeah,
sinking feeling for no. Like our bodies do that without us even asking it. Like, when you get that sinking feeling in your stomach, like we have a saying for that sensation. Like there are so many things that we take for granted within our language that to do with our body connecting to our energy, to connecting to our higher selves and our intuition. Just start listening to all of those.
yeah, just because otherwise you're going to miss the cues.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
just being aware of how it happens for you. It always happens. A lot of us get that voice that says, "Oh, you didn't turn off the oven," or maybe you see the oven, or you know, or maybe
Yeah.
you might even smell. There is the what is
Mm.
it? The Claire. It's one of the Claires. I forget which
Oh,
one now, but there is one that's
this is the smelling. Yeah,
a
because
smelling one.
the nosy one. Um, but oh my God, I mean this the power of scent of that's of smell, it's huge in terms of memory and cognition. Like it can bring back huge, it's very connected to our memories. The sense
Yes.
of smell. Yeah, it's
I
fascinating.
would also focus on just one of the abilities for now, and then you
Yeah.
can build on it.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's really given people like a flavor and like a real I feel like you make it sound it's really brilliant because you make it sound really straightforward. And it's like, oh, I had this realization, now I can do it. Everybody can do this. It's not like a tough, difficult thing. It's not like you have to have a special gift to just connect with your intuition, to connect with your spirit guides.
No, you absolutely don't. Yeah, exactly.
So tell people how they can get in touch with you, Michelle, and what kind of things you offer. Because obviously you do Akashic readings, but what other things do you offer?
So I actually teach people how to tap into their intuition with practice because practice makes perfect. If you don't practice, you don't have confidence in yourself.
Mm, mm.
So it's to give you that environment where you feel confident, in your findings, in a
Yes.
group setting where you see that everybody is finding the same thing as you, and you're like, what? Um, yeah, so I teach. I have a workshop coming up on February 23rd, actually. It's a 3-hour intensive workshop where I will teach you how to access your own Akashic records.
Oh,
Yes.
that's tempting. Is it online as well?
Online. It's online.
Okay. Mm,
I also have an on-demand course for those who can't sit and, you know, don't have that bandwidth to do a long workshop.
mhm.
Yes, and you can find me on Instagram at Michelle Galoob and also my website, michellegaloob.com.
Perfect. Okay, right. Well, thank you. I just want to say thank you. It's been a real delight talking to you. Like you're
Oh,
like
thank
a
you.
glass of water, just like really nourishing and beautiful and clear. And yeah, it was really lovely chatting to you.
Oh,
Thank you,
likewise.
Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you.